data at layer 7, how we can collect the PCAP data. And one of the things that I've also kept in for kind of discussing one of the lab is we normally as a SOC guys normally uses, like we have seen, let's say pen testing team normally uses Nmap tool and all, or the attacker uses Nmap tool to kind of scan any website for any vulnerability. Okay. So one of the basic uses of Nmap tool is to kind of see like if there are any server, what are the ports which are open. So we'll kind of look at what port means in much more detail. But let's say we actually try to find a way to kind of come inside the server. So one of the ways is kind of finding all the ports that are open in that server. Okay. So Nmap is actually used, tool is actually used to kind of highlight what is the port open in any website. And what we will do is like, rather than using the Nmap tool, okay, which is kind of what we will do is rather we'll write our own code, okay, which will do the port scanning for us, which will work like an Nmap. So what will do is like it will give you a better understanding how Nmap tool actually works in background, okay, in much more detail. What kind of packet headers does that Nmap send? But we will do it from ourselves. We will write a code with send similar kind of packets which Nmap does, and later what you can do is like you can modify that kind of code for your own benefit. Maybe do some other customization based on that basic template of that code. So we'll look at writing an Nmap using our own Python programming language, and then what we'll also do is like we'll do some practical on kind of sniffing packets and injecting packets. So sniffing packet, I mean like, let's say I am right now having a conversation with you on wireless communication. So an attacker could kind of sniff the network traffic that is going between my system and the router. And what they can also do is like they can also inject packet on, let's say on the name, on behalf of my name, they can kind of inject certain packets on the network, okay, which will kind of confuse the server, and it will kind of what it can do is like it can expose certain details to the attacker in an unauthorized way. So what thing is that there's a very famous tool called Wireshark, which you can use to kind of sniff the packet, okay. And there are certain other tools which actually in market right now, open source tool, which you can kind of use to kind of implement the injecting tool. But we will kind of try to make it more interesting, rather than using, obviously we'll get an understanding of Wireshark tool, but rather than just depending on being a SOC team which actually just dependent on tools, what we'll do is like we'll develop our own tools, okay. So we'll write a code which will sniff the packet for us, it can inject the packet for us, and we can kind of customize that as much as possible, okay. So these are the kind of light plans that we are planning right now for the network fundamentals part. And so we'll start first with the network fundamentals, and we'll see what TCP normal three-way handshake means. And that's where I will be kind of going to a new slides actually. And so with this, okay. So now what is it? So now guys, since we have kind of covered the module 1, which was related to understanding the SOC environment, and now we are now in the networking department. So any questions guys on the module 1 from you guys? Any questions do you have right now? Okay, so I take the silence as no questions. So as you guys now have seen, like this is our next plan. Now we will kind of go away from the SOC. Now we'll kind of have a really deep understanding of the networking fundamentals and other protocols. So what we'll do is that let's start this one fresh now, where we'll start with kind of going through network fundamentals, going through the network topologies, network OSI layers and all in much more detail. And in the OSI layer, we'll understand the OSI layer, but we will also understand from attacker perspective, how the attacker can kind of get hold of the data at every layer, okay? And how we can also utilize this for doing certain analysis from our end, okay? What kind of tapping we can do at network layer, what kind of tapping we can do at transport layer or presentation layer to kind of understand what kind of traffic is going back and forth between a server and a client, for an example, okay? And then we will kind of have a more deep understanding of data link layer, the MAC address, the IP addresses, and some little bit introduction to routers and the switches, and similarly how firewall works, and we'll have some detail about the we'll look at the packet from a Wireshark perspective. We'll kind of see certain packet, and we'll kind of see like what are different layers in that packets are. Okay, and if it is kind of same as what we saw in the OSI layer. Okay, so let's start fresh tomorrow with the network layer, and I hope guys you don't have any questions for the module 1, and if you have, do feel free to kind of make a note of that, and let's address those things out before we start our session tomorrow. Okay, so let's wind up for today. And one more thing guys, I like to just give an FYI, like just for this week, we will be having our session only on Monday and Tuesday, since I need to travel to a different country for attending a conferences. So my time is actually same right now. The conferences are almost same around the time the session will be happening. So just for this week, we'll be having session for not for 2 days, not for 4 days, and then we'll kind of continue from next week on the network fundamentals. So that's all for today, guys. If you don't have any other questions, so we'll wind up for today. Okay, thank you so much. See you guys. Bye bye.